Thank you for that introduction. That's, yeah, the kidnap industry is not going away. The extortion industry is not going away. The cargo theft industry is not going away. It's changed, but we change with it, of course, trying to beat them at every step. I want to thank you for that introduction and for allowing me to speak to you today. Get this going. The goal in a kidnap for ransom case, my goal, is to get the victim back as quickly as possible and actually taking control of things, taking more control of what the family has, controlling it and paying as little as possible to get that person back. Gain the release of the victim by paying the least amount by controlling what you have to control. In a kidnap case, what do you have control of? You have control of various things. One, you have control of who takes the phone calls from the kidnappers. You have control of when you take those phone calls, and you have control of the money. In the kidnap case, the kidnappers have control of the victim, and most important, the victim's life. My goal is to maintain control of what I have, use it against the kidnappers, and get the release of my client as quickly as possible. In a kidnapping case, when it first begins, the kidnappers, they know who their target is. They've taken the person from where they want to take them, and they call the family, and they talk to who they want to talk with. Usually the weakest link in the family. It's usually the mother, the father, the grandfather, people that hold the purse strings. My goal is to gain a bit of control of that, and the way I do that is I wait. I'm called. I come into country. I help the family get organized with a couple of things. One, to get ready for the next call. Kidnappers' first call is to announce who they have kidnapped, make a demand, and make some threats, of course. Don't call the police. Don't talk to the media. We're going to call you in 3 days. They hang up. So now the family calls the crisis center. I'm involved. I quickly get a hold of the family, and I make my plans to come into country. I get there within 24 hours. And I begin to use what control we have. That is, who's going to take the call? I don't want the mother to take the calls, although that's what the kidnappers want, because the mother is going to talk with her heart. The father is going to do the same. This past case that I managed, that's exactly what was happening. The mother received the first call. They wanted to talk with her. The victim gave the bad guys her telephone number, so they called her and made the demand against her and the family. So I, with the family's help, we selected a member of the family, a third cousin, who would take the calls. He was somebody I could train as to be my communicator. So we have that. We kept control of who is going to take the calls. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the person calling is the person that actually has the victim. In many of the cases that I manage, there's what I call a parachutist, somebody who has witnessed the case or has heard about it on maybe the news. Most kidnap cases take place during the daylight hours from 9 to 5. Why? Because that's when people go to work. That's the routine they have. And so the kidnappers look for routines. They look for an easy target. They select the target, and they have a plan, a business plan on how to do who's going to do the kidnapping, maintaining the person, asking for a ransom, and coming to a close. They have a window of time, a preset window of time. It's a good business model. 98% of the time, it works for the kidnappers. Who would like to have that kind of a success story? My goal is to pay a ransom, not what they're asking for, but to pay a good amount. So I begin to take control of what we have. So for the next call, I have my communicator. My communicator is going to talk to the kidnapper's communicator. It's a battle, but I always win because I control who talks to the bad guys. I also control when we take the calls. So the caller, the kidnapper, his next call, he's told the mother, we're going to call in 3 days. He calls in 3 days, but he calls at midnight. The family is distraught. They're tired. They don't know if they're going to receive a call or not, or have the police come and say, we found your son, thrown on the side of the street. That's what goes through everybody's mind. My job is to smooth things out so that this isn't a roller coaster of emotions. I have experience doing this. As you have experience in your field, you know how to manage it. I know how to manage kidnap cases. So I'm 80% of my time I spend with the family managing the case. The other time we spend waiting for a phone call. So the phone call comes in. I have my communicator introduce himself. He's a friend of the family. He doesn't give his name or who he is, although they're asking about that. But because we control it, I've trained him what to say. That is that we need to establish some ground rules. One, next call, you're going to give us proof of life. That is, we want to talk with the victim. In this last case, it was Pepe. We want to talk with Pepe and hear his voice. The bad guy said, that's impossible. We're not with him. Okay, then bring me the answer to this question. And we had a proof of life question. A proof of life question is one that only the family knows the answer to. It's not anything simple like the name of my dog. It's something that happened in the past. In this case, the victim is a 28-year-old young man taken in the usual way on his way home from work. On his way home from work. So the question was, what happened to you on your 10th birthday? A simple question, simple answer. That's the one I chose from a list of questions that the family had made for me. The kidnapper, the caller, said, okay, repeat that. So we repeated it, and he hung up. Okay, we've established one thing. They've accepted my communicator. They've lost control of what they had, that is talking to the mother. We won that battle. We also were going to get proof of life. In most cases that I manage, there's what I call a parachutist, somebody who's seen the case, somebody who's heard about it, and they're trying to drop in and collect some quick money. Usually they claim that they're a guard and they can get the victim out and have him ready, bring me $2,000 and I'll have him in a safe place for you. Well, okay, bring me proof of life. Bring me the answer to this question. No, I can't do that. Right. Then if you can't bring the answer to that question or put him on the telephone, then he's not the right person to deal with. And the last 5 years, 100% of the cases, I've had a parachutist come in. So we deal with that with proof of life. There's actually a movie made, Proof of Life, if some of you may have heard it. At any rate, so now we're waiting for the next call. The next call comes in and he gives us proof of life. The next bullet point on my sheet with my communicator is you're going to call between 6 and 9 p.m. Kidnappers tell us, we'll call you whenever the blankety blank we feel like calling you. The answer to that is, well, if you call, I can be here at the phone waiting for your call, or I can be out with the family looking for the ransom money to pay you, what you've asked for. There's usually silence on the other end, and he's agreed. They hang up, they call us back between 6 and 9 p.m., so we've gained that control as well. Paying the least amount is our our goal, reducing the demand. So my communicator is now going to say, okay, he's received the proof of life, he's received the call at 6 p.m. Our next information is to say, okay, what you're asking for is out of the family's reach. Come down to something that the family can manage. They begin to do that. What they're asking for is the sky. What they're going to receive is a good amount. There's only one way to really resolve a kidnap case for the safety of the victim, and that is paying a ransom. That's my goal, to pay a ransom, not what they're asking for, but an amount that will satisfy them. I want them to work for it. If I make it too easy, if we make it too easy of a job for them, they will want to repeat it. Collecting the ransom, they have the victim and ask for 10 times as much. Why? Because if you pay them what they want in the time period that they've asked for, it's an easy job. Any business person wants to repeat the job. So my job is to make them work for it, to keep it in the time frame that they've announced, that the cases usually are managed, to do that. But I want to pay a ransom, just not what they're asking for, because I want the family, the company, to be taken off their list. I want them to work for it. The more they work for it, the less amount that you pay the ransom, the less you're empowering them. If you pay them what they ask for, you're empowering them, and more than likely they will stretch the case out even longer. So paying the least amount of money is my goal. And in in a cargo heist, cargo theft, there has to be continuous communication between the driver and the dispatcher. The reason for that is the driver, as they're leaving the yard, can see if there's suspicious people around him. As he's going down from point A to point B, he can see if he's being followed. Same thing with my clients in a kidnapping situation. As they're leaving point A to point B, from home to work, and as people, we all have those routines, from home to work or home to school. Those are the targets of a kidnapping. The cargo is the target of the cargo theft. So being aware of who is around you as you're leaving, what can be done? The driver can announce to the dispatcher, listen, there's some suspicious people, there's some suspicious vehicles outside the walls here, outside the fence, or down the road. There were these cars were outside while I was leaving, and now I see them again. I'm being followed. What can be done? As in kidnapped victims or targeted people, they can spot suspicious people, go to a safe area. The safe area is an area where there's, for a targeted kidnap, is an area where there's a guard, on the street side of somebody's home, a business that has guards outside, a company, a bank, a school, a hospital where there's security. Same thing for drivers. He can go to a pre-designated safe area, another company, an associate company, somewhere where he can go and ask for assistance. The dispatcher can call the police if possible. The dispatcher can direct the driver where to go to. And in many cases, many of the heists that I've helped with, that is the common information that I receive is we saw suspicious vehicles and people as we were leaving. Same thing with my clients. We saw suspicious people outside the house. What did you do? Nothing. What could we do? Well, you can react. You do something. You call security. You send an employee out to investigate, to ask questions. That makes you a difficult target because there are plenty of easy targets to go after. You get scratched off the list. In The other types of kidnapping, extortion methods, there's three kinds that I usually manage: express kidnapping, virtual kidnappings, and long-term kidnappings. In an express kidnap, it usually lasts 1 to 3 hours. Somebody is taken as they're leaving work. Many times people are taken from the airports. Why? Because there's a lot of bad people out there, especially at the airports, watching who is coming in and taking advantage of it. This last express kidnap, I couldn't help because it only lasted 3 hours and the guy's, everything was taken from him. As he's leaving work, he drives out, says goodnight to the guard, drives out in his BMW, is on his way home. Of course, he's on his cellular, not paying attention as to who is around him. The guys that took him were about to block him with their vehicle. My client pulled off and went into a store to buy some water before continuing on his way. They didn't block him. They waited for him as he was parking. They put a gun into his ribs and took him. They took all his valuables. They took him to the ATM. They emptied that. They took his wallet, used his credit cards, and within 3 hours, they were about ready to release him. And he asked them, listen, why'd you select me? And he goes, oh, you gave yourself over to us. You were easy. We've watched you leave the office at night by yourself, and you're usually on your cell phone, not paying attention. We've followed you several times, and we were following you tonight. We were going to block you off, but since you pulled off the street, you made yourself available. We're going to keep your vehicle because it's nice and get some money from that too. Here you go, good night, and pushed out the door. They do this 3 or 4 times a day. In a virtual kidnapping, there's actually no victim. It's a hoax. They've stolen a cell phone and they call who? Mom, dad, grandparents, the family, and they demand a ransom for the release. A few days ago, I had a case where a young lady, she's taking night classes at college. The bad guys stole her cell phone from her purse hanging on the chair behind her, and they called mom. They called dad. They have dad on the phone saying, we have your daughter, Maria. We want X amount of money. You gather all the jewelry that you have at the house, go to the ATM, empty that out, and bring it, and we're going to tell you where to go to. He did what he was told. Out the door he goes. A half hour later, his wife receives a call saying, gather all the jewelry you have, go to the ATM, empty that out, and bring it to us. She tells him, my husband just went to do that about a half hour ago. It wasn't enough, they told him. Well, what can I do? I don't have anything. Go to your neighbor and ask for a loan. She did. It so happens the neighbor is a client of mine. She suspected that there was that it might be a virtual kidnapping. So she calls me. I agree to help. I talk to the mother and I say, listen, we think it's a virtual. This is why. When is your daughter due home? In a little less than an hour. She agreed to stay home. She waited for the daughter. The daughter comes home knowing that her cell phone had been taken, but she didn't know what was going on. The mother, of course, is happy. They're talking about it. In comes the father, very distraught, not knowing what's going on, saying, I've got to recharge my telephone. It died, and I've got to go back out to wait for Maria to be released. He sees his daughter, and he's going, what the? They tell him what's going on. They've called me. He gets on the floor, pounds the floor, furious that he fell for such a hoax. He's not a stupid man. He's a doctor. This happens over and over and over again. My point is, ask for verification, proof that the caller has who he says he has. By talking to the victim, to the loved one, to the to the employee or a proof of life question. Having a set of questions already pre-posed is the best way, especially for families and companies. Have some security methodology of what the company is going to do if an employee is kidnapped. Most of my cases I manage in Mexico, although I've been around the world managing cases or helping families. And we always break it down when it's a corporate case, we break it down to the family. Why? Because we're reducing the expectations. The family doesn't have the deep pockets that a company has. And we win that battle as well. The kidnappers, they're interested in a ransom, in money. We control that. We're going to pay a ransom, but we don't want it to be repeated with that same person or next year. We want the client to be taken off the list as a difficult client. The other type of case that I said I manage is a long-term case. Kidnappers call the family or call the company. They announce who they've taken. They announce that they want X amount as the ransom, and they'll call back and they give you a time. They threaten, if you call the police, will hurt or even kill the victim. So don't call the police, don't talk to the media. The family will call the crisis center. I get involved. I help the family begin to gain control again of the situation. I give them some things to do. I usually arrive within 24 hours. In most cases, I find and in this last case, I find more than enough people. That is, the whole family is there. I walked into the home. I was introduced to the victim's father, and I said, Don Juan, this is. I asked for a small committee. He goes, yeah, Mike, this is my family. They all want to help. I go, okay. Do you have a lawyer in the group? Oh yeah, my cousin is a lawyer. I talked to him. I said, listen, I told him what I wanted to do, what I needed. He goes, Mike, no problem. Less than 5 minutes, 25 people are marching out the front door. They're all glaring at me because they know, I'm the one behind that. So we start forming a crisis management team. Every company should have one. Every family should have one for different scenarios, not just for kidnapping. What are you going to do if there's a fire, a flood, an earthquake? I'm from California. We all know what to do in an earthquake. The crisis management team is going to be made up of several people. I'm going to be part of that. A communicator is going to be part of that. And we're going to set some boundaries like I talked about before, receiving the call, receiving proof of life, getting the demand to come down, reducing the demand. In the cargo thefts, the thieves are using quite a bit of technology. One of the things that helped me was cell phones. Bad guys using cell phones. It permitted my communicator and myself to be anywhere. We didn't have to stay at the home where the calls, or at the company where the calls were beginning to come into. We could move around. So we're less of a target. I could get my communicator and myself together in a hotel and wait for the calls there. We could have the crisis management team meetings at the hotel instead of at the victim's home. In most kidnap cases, the victim's home is being surveilled by the bad guys, and in most cases by the police as well. They become aware of the case either by witnesses or just because they're police and they're doing their job, they become aware of the case. The last thing I want is for the police to investigate and do a rescue attempt. I want to close the door to that. In a crisis management team, I have my communicator, myself. I have somebody who has contacts with the government so they can close the door to a police investigation. I have somebody from HR who's going to help the family while the victim is being held. And that's a very important job, the HR person helping the family. The litigation is going to go crazy after the case. The better help that you provide for the victim's family, the less chance of a lawsuit against the company. With technology being used in cargo thefts, you have GPS in your cargo. My recommendation is to have 3 to 5 devices. Why? The bad guys are using signals to block in the GPS. So while in transit, you should have 3 to 5 devices so it can be tracked. You should have letters announcing that you have tracking devices, and you have them with both cellular and satellite capabilities. It's part of security for the driver and the cargo. While stopped for brakes, the driver should be very aware of who is around him. Just like in my clients in a kidnapping case, when they go from point A to point B, they look as they're leaving their home, who is around me, who is around my home, who is around me as I'm leaving my home. If you take a look at what vehicles are out and about the house every morning, you're going to see that we like to park in the same space every day. And so your neighbors do, the employees do. And so you're going to see the same vehicles. The same thing with a cargo theft. Before the cargo leaves, they should look around and make sure that there's no suspicious people. And if they do see suspicious vehicles or people, then to call the dispatcher. There should be good communication between the dispatcher and the driver at all times. While stopped at brakes, making sure they go to a safe place. A friend of mine, he was mugged as he pulled into a rest stop area. Instead of walking around in the lighted area, he walked in between the trucks. He was mugged, and he lost, of course, all his money. Before he woke up, they had gone to the ATM and used that and emptied his account. Be aware of the situation. Know who is around you, and react if you see something that looks out of place. In the kidnap, for ransom threats, receiving the call and responding to the call, I get a lot of my information from the crisis center, and there are various crisis centers that call me to respond. When I get those calls, I get the information. I immediately call the family or the company, and I start to put control to manage the case. I've been responding on cases for 29 years. My father brought me into this business, and he took me on my first case, got a 15-year-old boy back, and it was an emotional roller coaster for me going through it. When he returned, of course, I'm bawling. I look over at my father, and he has a tear coming down. I go, "Dad, you've been doing this, for years, and you still get emotionally worked up?" And he goes, "Son, my heart breaks with every case." And sure enough, it's your heart does break with every case. The emotional roller coaster that the family is going through, the emotional roller coaster that the companies go through when it's a corporate case is indescribable. The only thing that helps that is to get the victim back. The only way to do that is to basically pay a ransom. Pay not what they're asking for, but paying a good size, a good amount. I provide guidance to the crisis management team. The team members are going to be the chief of the crisis management team, that is a decision maker. There's going to be a head of security that's going to help with the family, maybe relocating the family. I'm going to be part of helping that. There's going to be a communicator. There's going to be somebody who's going to raise the ransom money, either bringing it in out of country or getting it together within country. I'm going to help with that, make recommendations. I had one case where I was asking the guy that was in charge of that. I go, are you getting the ransom ready? Oh yeah, we're getting it done. And I asked him, well, where are you keeping it? He goes, it's under your bed, Mike. I go, no, that's not a good place. So you keep the ransom money where it's available, because you never know when the kidnappers are going to say, and for whatever reason, they're going to say, okay, gather what you have and deliver it to us. You have to have what you've promised them. You have to be able to deliver it. You can't say, well, wait, I have to cash a few checks to do that. No, you have to have the cash. When you make an offer, and I do increments of offers. That is, I start off with one amount and I increase that with my next call or the next time I make an offer. I'm there from day one until the end of the case, helping the family manage it. We always bring it down to the family. Like I said before, we lower the expectation. We've gained and maintained control of what we have control of, and we reduce the expectation by reducing the demand. The company's role is to, especially with cargo theft, with kidnapping, what can be done is to find out who the players are in the area that you're working. Most of my cases are in Mexico, and so I've developed a good rapport with a lot of people there. We've done investigations as to who the bad guys are in the area. We've been able to talk with the union members, with organizations that can help us secure the routes, doing the investigations, and having them agree not to take our cargo, not to kidnap our people. Those agreements so far have worked very, very well. Have a plan, know who the targets are, have a plan as to investigating, knowing who the bad guys are in the area, have a plan on what to do about it, react. Don't just let it continue to happen. You put up security, and they usually have that solved by the next day. Rings of security to bring down the risk. Review and update your guidelines with employees and with family members living down in country. Have a plan as to what you're going to do. Practice it, review it, and one of the things I always do, of course, is respond when there's a kidnapping, the threat of one. Many of the cases I manage are extortion cases over the telephone, virtual kidnappings. Putting a stop to those is terrific. The bad guys are going to holler and threaten, but if they can't bring you the proof of life answer, then they don't have who they say they have.